All right, hello. Today we are going to flash some ESCs for the T19 Nerf project. There's two things I want to go over really quick. You're going to be using two different categories, I would say, of ESC. Either you're going to be using the ACE NX, I believe. Let me pull that up. Okay, let's see. So you are going to be, if you decide to build this, this is the ESC that's designed by Turok for his Nerf blasters, including the T19. So if you build this, then you probably already know what you're doing. I believe the process is going to be different, but I'm not completely sure on that. Let's quickly go over the anatomy of the ESC. Maybe that'll help us understand what we're doing here. So here's a Simon K 30 amp ESC I found on eBay. The only reason I was able to find this was because of a recommendation by Flagonio uh, on his threaded rod T19. So this has a BEC, which means it's providing 5 volts power back through this red wire. That's a feature that we don't really want in this application, so we're not going to use it. We have our battery power coming in here on the black and the red. And that voltage that comes in, the 15 volts or whatever, gets regulated down to 5 volts in order to drive the Atmel IC that's on this ESC. So that's the power coming in. That power is also going to go to the motors, but I'll discuss that in a second. Power comes in, and then we have our phase wires. And each of these wires, it's going to apply voltage to each of these wires in order to make the motor spin. The timing of the motor spinning and what part of the winds is energized is going to be handled by this ESC. That's different from a normal brushed Nerf motor, which has tiny little brushes inside of the can, which are going to basically change where the power is in order to make that motor spin. Okay, so that's a very poor, quick explanation of what an ESC is. This is used in brushless Nerf blasters. Okay, so what we have to do to flash this, in my experience, I have a Turnigy USB linker. I'll just pull up a picture. Here's the USB linker I have. I didn't pay 20 bucks. I think I paid like 2. You might have to look around for it. But this is pretty standard. There's also like Afro USB linkers. There's other ones like this. And if I'm not mistaken, uh, all of these tools are going to rely on your ESC having a bootloader installed, which is like a technical Arduino thing, which basically means that there's some code already on the board, and that allows you to upload and download and update what's on the board, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not an expert. Okay, so I happen to know that this one already has an unlocked bootloader installed. I know it's compatible. I already know that. If it did not have a bootloader, I would probably have to take a programmer and put it directly on the IC, the main chip on the ESC, which is right there. Or you could solder to the little pads coming out here. These pads are going to be important to us later on, but let's stay on topic. Okay, so what I tried, the Turnigy linker actually supposedly provides 5 volt power, and the idea being that the ESC would be powered from the USB of your computer, which would allow you to flash it. In my experience, this totally did not work. I don't know why. It doesn't work. So what I had to do, and I'll do it now. So I'm going to take an X-Acto, and I'm going to carefully pry up. I don't expect it to autofocus. I'm going to pry up this black center tab just a little bit. Don't cut yourself. And then I'm going to pull on the red wire. You might have to separate these a little bit to start off. Okay. See how the red wire just slides right out there? Because I was lifting that. So for flashing and even for our T19 project, T19, we're not going to need the 5-volt red wire. It's not going to be used. So now all we have is data lines like a ground, and I think this white wire is used for data. So that's the first step. The second step, in order to power it, because the ESC needs to be powered during flashing, there's different things you could do. The most haphazardous, which I wouldn't recommend, would be just jam these in the XT60. I definitely would not recommend that. So what we're going to do is we're going to solder an XT60 onto our ESC just for this purpose. Doesn't have to stay there forever, but I think that will give us the reliable connection we need to flash. I don't want anything to come disconnected while we're flashing because it could damage the ESC. Okay, so let me fire up my soldering iron here. If I was going to do more than like 4 of these, I would probably get some WAGO connectors and then have just push one of these wires into the WAGO, clamp it down, and then have some wires coming out of the WAGO that would go to an XT60, which would make all of this a lot easier and faster. But yeah, I'm only going to flash 4 of these for now. So our iron is about up to temp, and I'm not the best solderer, so don't judge me. Don't hate me, bro. I'm tinning the leads. Get some more. Okay. I'm going to get some solder in the terminals of our XT60. I think for the final build, I'm definitely going to want to have helping hands to just hold stuff for me, because I'm going to have a lot more soldering to do to make the S core boards, which are the main microcontroller of the T19. Okay, let's try to put this together without burning myself. Let's do the negative first. Okay, there's our negative. That was actually pretty good solder job. If this was permanent, I would heat shrink this stuff, obviously, but it's not. I don't think so anyway. I plan right now to reheat shrink these. You already saw I had one ESC without the blue wrap that I cut the wrap off, and that's because we need to add a wire to the ESC, which is going to send motor feedback to our main control board. So in a commercial ESC like this, I'm going to have to solder that wire on to one of the CPU pads. I've heard some people say that having no heat shrink is going to give you better thermal performance on the ESC, that the heat shrink traps hot air in. I don't know if that's true. Other people have said that the heat shrink is important to hold this metal heat sink to the chips. to the MOSFETs. So that may be true as well. In any event, we have a XT60 soldered in the correct direction. I'm going to turn my iron off. Okay, and then let me grab, I don't think I'm going to grab my linker because I'm lazy. I'm going to plug this into my linker. I'm going to plug the small one without the red wire into the linker. And then I'm going to connect my LiPo to the XT60 we just soldered. Again, making sure that the polarity is correct. All right, give me a second. I think as long as you don't have 5 volts in the mix, I think there's a reduced risk of plugging your wires in wrong because it should just be ground. All right, I'm plugging my LiPo in now. Nothing went pop, so that's good. Now I'm going to switch to desktop view, and we're going to go to this little guy. And this is called Rapid Flash. So there's different flashing software you can use. There's one called KK Multicopter, which I also have downloaded. Looks like this. Nope. Looks like the 32-bit version. The weird thing I found is sometimes it doesn't open. Like I have to delete this directory and then reopen it. I have no idea why. So just forget about that. Anyway, what I did is I downloaded the portable Chromium build that Matthew Bragg links in the T19 build guide right here. Flashing ZTW spiders for Flyshot. There's a Windows Chromium image, which is actually the Linux link, and then the Windows link is going to be your Linux app image. I couldn't get the Linux app image to open at first, so that's why I'm on the Windows PC. I did eventually get it to open. You have to disable App Armor, and if you just copy paste the error into Google that you get when you try to open it, you'll find a GitHub page or whatever where someone tells you what to copy paste to disable App Armor. But the problem I ran into with the Chromium image for Linux is that when I opened it, every page would be the, oh snap, like we don't have internet page. Even the extensions page, like the browser was completely unusable. I couldn't get the extension installed. It just didn't work. However, the Windows one does work. So I downloaded the EXE. It's an installer. You install it, blah, blah, blah. Then you go to the GitHub. You download Rapid Flash. And then they tell you how to install it right here. You have to unzip the Rapid Flash download that you download from here. Download the zip, unzip it, go to Chrome, Chromium, enable developer mode, load unpacked, and then point it to the unzipped directory right here. Okay? And then when you go into Chromium, it's going to have here's Chromium Portable. If you go to extensions, you see I have Rapid Flash here, and then you're going to be able to launch it, which I already have it launched, but yeah. Okay, so Rapid Flash, I have Turnkey USB linker selected. I have a port. You probably just have to try a couple until you get the correct one. You're not going to use these two. I set this one to custom, but I don't think that matters. What you're going to do is you're going to load local firmware. You're going to select the correct binary for your board. Most of them seem to take bs_nfet.hex, which is this one right here. But if you choose the wrong firmware file, worst case scenario, you are going to pop some chips on the ESC because the pin definitions and stuff will be different. So it might destroy your board. So just make sure that your board accepts bs_nfet. And there's plenty of resources on the internet that will tell you what hex file or what platform your ESC is, because Simon K gets compiled for different platforms, and that's what bs_nfet means. I think NFET means N-channel MOSFET. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Load local firmware, and then we're going to flash it. So my stuff is plugged in, the red wire is disconnected, my LiPo is plugged in, so we're going to hit flash. It's going to recognize the chip. Before I figured this out and I was trying to power it over the 5-volt wire, I was just getting AVR dude timeout, whatever, like it couldn't connect to the chip. So doing the LiPo is what fixed this, okay? So programming successful, successfully closed serial connection. So now we have our ESC running a modified Simon K that supports the Flyshot protocol. Flyshot, yep, Flyshot firmware. Let's hope I was on my desk the whole time. Okay, I was on my screen. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. So now our ESC is flashed. So that's good. That's all I'm going to cover for this video. Again, there's a lot of variables depending on which ESC you find and you purchase. Does it have a bootloader? Do you select the correct firmware file? There's a lot of variables. Thankfully, I was able to find these ESCs because the ones that support Simon K, the 8-bit ESCs, are becoming less common because the drone hobby has collectively all moved to the BL Heli 32-bit ESCs, which isn't good for us. I mean, maybe in the future someone could write some firmware for that, but if you want to do this project, you need one that supports Simon K. So that's going to be all. I'm going to handle the soldering of the extra wire in a separate video. I hope that was helpful. Goodbye.